but vowing he would never enter the place again, he went out, clay white, but with the swaggering air of a man who had just asserted himself. He drooped, however, as soon as he reached the street, and I had no difficulty in following him to a certain gambling den, where he gained $3 and lost 5. From there he went to his lodgings in West 10th Street. I did not follow him in. He had passed through many deep and wearing emotions since noon, and I had not the heart to add another to them. But late the next day I returned to this house and rang the bell. It was already dusk, but there was light enough for me to notice the unrepaired condition of the iron railings on either side of the old stone stoop, and to compare this abode of decayed grandeur with the spacious and elegant apartment in which pretty Mrs. Holmes mourned the loss of her young husband. Had any such comparison ever been made by the unhappy John Graham as he hurried up these decayed steps into the dismal halls beyond? In answer to my summons there came to the door a young woman to whom I had but to intimate my wish to see Mr. Graham for her to let me in with the short announcement:
"Top floor, back room. Door open, he's out. Door shut, he's in."
As an open door meant liberty to enter, I lost no time in following the direction of her pointing finger, and presently found myself in a low attic chamber, overlooking an acre of roofs. A fire had been lighted in the open grate, and the flickering red beams danced on ceiling and walls with a cheeriness greatly in contrast to the nature of the business which had led me there. As they also served to light the room, I proceeded to make myself at home, and drawing up a chair, sat down at the fireplace in such a way as to conceal myself from any one entering the door. In less than half an hour he came in. He was in a state of high emotion. His face was flushed and his eyes burning. Stepping rapidly forward, he flung his hat on the table in the middle of the room, with a curse that was half cry and half groan. Then he stood silent, and I had an opportunity of noting how haggard he had grown in the short time which had elapsed since I had seen him last. But the interval of his inaction was short, and in a moment he flung up his arms with a loud "Curse her!" that rang through the narrow room and betrayed the source of his present frenzy. Then he again stood still, grating his teeth and working his hands in a way terribly suggestive of the murderer's instinct. But not for long. He saw something that attracted his attention on the table, a something upon which my eyes had long before been fixed, and starting forward with a fresh and quite different display of emotion, he caught up what looked like a roll of manuscript and began to tear it open.
"Back again, always back!"
wailed from his lips, and he gave the roll a toss that sent from its midst a small object which he no sooner saw than he became speechless and reeled back. It was another of the steel coils.
"Good God!"
fell at last from his stiff and working lips.
"Am I mad, or has the devil joined in the pursuit against me? I cannot eat, I cannot drink, but this diabolical spring starts up before me. It is here, there, everywhere, the visible sign of my guilt, the
He had stumbled back upon my chair, and turning, saw me. I was on my feet at once, and noting that he was dazed by the shock of my presence, I slid quietly between him and the door. The movement roused him. Turning upon me with a sarcastic smile in which was concentrated the bitterness of years, he briefly said:
"So I am caught. Well, there has to be an end to men as well as to things, and I am ready for mine. She turned me away from her door today, and after the hell of that moment I don't much fear any other."
"You had better not talk," I admonished him. "All that falls from you now will only tell against you on your trial." He broke into a harsh laugh.
"And do you think I care for that? That, having been driven by a woman's perfidy into crime, I am going to bridle my tongue and keep down the words which are my only safeguard from insanity? No! No, while my miserable breath lasts, I will curse her, and if the halter is to cut short my words, it shall be with her name blistering my lips." I
attempted to speak, but he would not give me the opportunity. The passion of weeks had found vent, and he rushed on recklessly.
I went to her house today. I wanted to see her in her widow's weeds. I wanted to see her eyes red with weeping over a grief which owed its bitterness to me. But she would not grant me an admittance. She had me thrust from her door, and I shall never know how deeply the iron has sunk into her soul. But—"
and here his face showed a sudden change.
"I shall see her if I'm tried for murder. She will be in the courtroom, on the witness stand."
"Doubtless," I interjected. But his interruption came quickly and with vehement passion.
"Then I am ready. Welcome trial, conviction, death even. To confront her eye to eye is all I wish. She shall never forget it. Never."
"Then you do not deny—" I began.
"I deny nothing,"
he returned, and held out his hands with a grim gesture.
"How can I, when there falls from everything I touch the devilish thing which took away the life I hated?"
"Have you anything more to say or do before you leave these rooms?" I asked. He shook his head, and then, bethinking himself, pointed to the roll of paper which he had flung on the table.
"Burn that!" he
cried. I took up the roll and looked at it. It was the manuscript of a poem in blank verse.
"I have been with it into a dozen newspaper and magazine offices," he explained with great bitterness. "Had I succeeded in getting a publisher for it, I might have forgotten my wrongs and tried to build up a new life on the ruins of the old. But they would not have it, none of them. So I say burn it, that no memory of me may remain in this miserable world."
"Keep to the facts," I severely retorted. "It was while carrying this poem from one newspaper to another that you secured that bit of print upon the blank side of which you yourself printed the obituary notice with which you savored your revenge upon the woman who had disappointed you."
"You know that? Then you know where I got the poison with which I tipped the silly toy with which that weak man fooled away his life?"
"No," said I do not know where you got it. I merely know it was no common poison, bought at a druggist's, or from any ordinary chemist."
"It was woorali, the deadly secret woorali. I got it from—but that's another man's secret. You'll never hear from me anything that will compromise a friend. I got it, that is all. One drop, but it killed my man."
The satisfaction, the delight, which he threw into these words are beyond description. As they left his lips, a jet of flame from the neglected fire shot up, and threw his figure for one instant into bold relief upon the lowering ceiling. Then it died out, and nothing but the twilight dusk remained in the room and on the countenance of this doomed and despairing man.
End of a difficult problem.